Sell tangible assets. I'm sure you probably already saw this coming. As I started talking about building your debt settlement fund, I was saying you're going to build it from your income and your assets. So let's look at what that really means. Even at this point, even after doing the full accounting and knowing that a debt settlement fund is going to be necessary to settle your full debt at about 35%, people still ask me, when is the right time to start considering selling things that I don't want to let go of? The answer is if and when you decide that being debt-free is more important than holding on to grandma's wedding china or your grandfather's stamp collection or your own stamp collection. I am not going to weigh in on the emotional, sentimental, even pride or identity value on what your assets are. They all vary differently for everybody. But it comes back to that same question. How much is your attachment to that object worth remaining in debt or getting out of debt? You have to answer that for yourself for everything that you've assessed in terms of being a valuable asset. Nevertheless, before we start selling off family heirlooms or the family car, let's look at some things you might have that you're not so attached to. If your house is like mine, you've likely acquired quite a bit of things over the years that you're not really using anymore. Sometimes we don't even have enough space to store them all. Maybe you have an old flat screen TV that you still think you're going to move upstairs into one of the extra bedrooms, but right now is just sitting behind a dresser up against a wall, unused. Who doesn't have at least 3 lamps in the house that never get turned on? Those 4 chairs from a dining room table that got sold or destroyed years ago that are still stacked up in the corner waiting for guests to come one night. One of the time, these things may only be worth $10, $25, $50, or $100. But a whole house worth added together could be several hundreds. We talked about that $5,000 card being settled for about $1,500. And if you put in $300 a year from not going out to coffee and $200 a year from not having streaming subscriptions, and you save some money on alcohol and you sell off a few things in your house that you're not using, suddenly you start to see a way to settle out a credit card that you didn't think you could before. And after you're done in the closets, go into the attic. Go into the garage. We all have things piled up that we're keeping, again, because we think we need them when we really don't. And some of these things truly can have some value to them. Maybe it's that old laptop that you're not using anymore, or old camera, or old cell phone that could possibly be worth $15, $25, $50. Bookshelves and dressers have a way of stacking up in a garage because we think, I don't want to give them away. I paid a few $100 for them. I don't want to throw them away. They're not trash. But what are they really doing for you except stacking boxes full of things that aren't doing anything for you? Maybe you've got some small appliances in there, an old toaster oven, or large appliances. I had a dryer in my garage for years before I sold it to somebody for $35. I find that there's somebody on OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace or Let It Go willing to spend $5, $10, $15, $25 for just about anything out there, from old shoes to step stools to lamps to clothes to whatever. I had this experience with baby gear. We have 3 kids. We spent thousands of dollars on high chairs and cribs and rockers and baby gates and strollers. The list goes on and on that all seem to have value. So I stuck them in the garage thinking maybe I'll use them for the next kid. I'm going to do something with them one day. And then everybody grew out of them and now they were just collecting dust. And I started putting them on OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace and I sold them all off for about $500. Baby gear that I thought I would never use again. So sign up for those Swap It apps. They have national ones. They have local ones. You go on Facebook. They have different groups in your local area that are swapping things with each other. This is a way to generate some pretty serious income from things that you have lying around the house. And only after you've assessed the value of the things you have lying around that you're not attached to and put the money you've sold it for into your debt settlement fund, do you need to start looking at things you are attached to if your fund still needs to grow in order to match your settlement target amounts. I used grandma's wedding china as an example of things that you may have that sentimental, that historical, that heirloom familial attachment to, or things that you feel are of more value than you could get selling it on a Swap It app. Maybe it's old porcelain plates or that stamp collection that I mentioned. I'm not saying to liquidate your past. I'm just saying do that assessment of it all to figure out what are the things you really are attached to and what are the things that you could possibly let go. Like for instance, those silver candlesticks from your first wedding. Do they really need to still be in a box in the garage? Do you even know they're there? I can almost guarantee you that you are going to find things in your garage that can be sold that you think you're attached to, but likely aren't. And then of course the question becomes how to sell them. There are places where you can sell items of higher value that you will likely get more for them than just on a swap it app like OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace. There are stores called consignment shops, which will take your antiques, artwork, jewelry collections that you set the price for. They put it in their shop. They split the sale with you at a percentage that you negotiate with them. But the people shopping in that shop for that artwork or jewelry or valuable old clothing are going to likely pay more for it than people finding the same items on a Swap It app. There are auction houses, if you have a particularly valuable piece of artwork or collection or jewelry, who will get more for it than a Swap It app. So if you go through these old collections, I'm not saying, again, to get rid of the things that you really want to keep. I'm just saying that as you move through your debt settlement journey and you find that you need that extra money in order to build that settlement fund up to that point where you can say yes to the bank's last offer instead of no, really make that hard, uncomfortable choice about what you must keep it if you must, and what you can let go. And once you've been through those items, those personal, sentimental, even higher value items that take a little more effort to sell off and liquidate and turn into cash, then we can start looking at things like the family car. Now, unless you live in New York or Chicago or London or Paris or somewhere that has a subway or public transit system that is so good and so commonly used that you can get around more than adequately without your own means of transportation, I'm not saying give up your primary means of transportation in order to pay off your debt settlement fund. But I am saying look at it as the CEO of the corporation of you and run it through the business numbers, because a business that is in serious financial straits will inventory everything. Every desk in the office building, every piece of factory equipment, every pencil and roll of tape in the supply closet, every employee, every salary, they will inventory everything when it comes to figuring out what they need to sell off to maintain the functionality of their business, and you must do the same. There was a woman in one of my live seminars once who was struggling under $100,000 in credit card debt, nearly all of it inherited from her now ex-husband, and she was very angry coming out of the divorce, very bitter and very frightened. She did not know, after being out of the workforce for so many years, how she was going to earn a living to pay for her life, much less pay off the $100,000 in debt that she got saddled with at the end of her divorce. We did her full accounting. She had no liquid assets, no valuable tangible assets that she felt were worth anything. And as we started going through the list of what she could or couldn't sell, and she was really desperately saying, I've got nothing, it came out that she owned a 2-year-old Mercedes sedan that was paid off. Everyone in the room gasped. Someone did a quick search and found out the car was worth, I think, about $50,000 at the time. And when she saw where this was going, she said, oh no, I'm not selling my car. That's the only thing I got out of the divorce. The woman had a deep emotional attachment to that car, which in reality was nothing more than a Mercedes automobile. But to her, it was the only thing that she left her failed marriage with. So appreciating that with her for the moment, letting her feel what she was feeling. I've never said don't feel the emotions. I've said feel them to get through them and get over them. We ran the numbers. If she sold that car for $50,000, she could take $35,000 of it and use that to settle out the entire $100,000 in credit card debt. That would leave her with $15,000, from which we estimated she could buy a $10,000 used car and still have $5,000 to use towards her life for a little while. Not to mention she wouldn't be paying the $2,500 in minimum monthly payments to her credit card anymore, while she went out and got back into the workforce and started earning an income again, which she was already attempting to do. We even estimated, based on her full accounting, the expenses that she had, that if things went according to her debt settlement easy business plan, it would take her about 4 years to save enough money to buy back that same model Mercedes as a used car. So with those numbers in front of her, I asked, what's more important to you? A life of debt-free self-sufficiency, or holding on to your anger at your ex-husband in the form of this car? I know few people have a paid-off luxury sedan sitting around that they can put towards their debt settlement fund. But maybe you've got that old motorcycle in the garage that the carburetors have gunked up on so many times that it just won't run anymore. Or those his and her jet skis that you used to use all the time when you lived by the lake. Or that trailer for a boat you already sold. How many times have you walked by the RV in your driveway as you walk towards your mailbox to collect the new rush of debt collection letters before you turn and finally see it there and realize that its value to you is not as great sitting on your driveway as it could be helping you get out of debt? The different scenarios are personal to everyone, and I couldn't possibly list them all. But you need to. You need to look at your life, your house, your driveway, your garage, your vehicles, your hobbies, your interests, your habits, your assets, your income, and figure out the right route for you to start building that debt settlement fund towards the goal, towards the strategic goal of getting out of debt so you can start living the life that you want to live again. So that's 9 ideas already. From making coffee at home to cleaning out the garage and the attic, as you go through everything in your mind and you start walking through your house and going through them physically, make a list, put them into your debt settlement spreadsheet, allocate how much of their sale value you could put towards debt settlement. One of the benefits of my spreadsheet, which I particularly like, is that you can also list the cost of sale, any taxes you might have to pay, any fees associated with the sale to get to the actual cash value of the items you're letting go of, not just the market value, to really see what these things can add up to in putting towards your debt settlement fund. And that brings us to the number 1 way to raise a debt settlement fund from money you didn't realize you already have. My top secret tactic for building a debt settlement fund